That was a nice move by Pipkins, taking it right to the rack himself. Wide open three, left wing, and it's good. Nylon, the dunk likes that, Matt.
A three from the right side, and it's good! The one, Pipkins, the man, yet again.
Hello and welcome to The Flex. I'm Matt St. Jean.
This is Joe Howie.
You're going to get a lot of frustration out of us on this one. We're recording right after the game, immediately after. Marquette takes it 79-69 over the Friars. There's a lot to talk about in this game. But, oh man, I'm going to start by saying the sky is not falling. I'm frustrated. I'm angry about this game, but the sky is not falling. To put this in context, Friartown. Providence went on the road just over 48 hours after their last game, which they lost in heartbreaking fashion. You go from an 11 a.m. game to a 9 p.m. game, massive change in the body clock. You don't have your starting point guard, and your two best players, your three best players, all get banged up during the game. I mean, you all saw Watson, Duke, and Reeves all get hurt at points during this game and miss time because of it. Well, Duke didn't miss time, but he was clearly slowed because of it. So I will say, when you put it into that context, I don't mind this loss. But yeah, if we delve into this, there's a lot to be angry about. I want to start with the refs because they just made me really mad. But we don't have to start there, Joe. What's on your mind?
I'm going to take a different approach from you. I'm kind of in the sky is falling category right now because big picture here, you don't have the comfort of a non-conference schedule to really pad your wins versus losses. With this win, we dip under 500 in conference play, so that means we need to win our next game to just be 500 flat. And it's Georgetown who, like Marquette, is going to be playing with a sense of urgency. And right now, this team is learning how to lose. I think late game defensive execution has been very poor. Um, I think, Matt, you're right. Officiating did have some effect in the way we played. We didn't lose because of officiating. So, for all the Twitter fingers, we did not lose because of officiating, but it does have an effect in momentum in the way the game is played. So, I will leave it there. We'll get into that in a little bit. But my overall thoughts here are if you wanted to come away from this Big East gauntlet trip somewhat successful, right now we're not doing it because you've lost three straight. The first two, Creighton, Xavier, those are heartbreakers. This one, it's just like you chip, and then you lose by 10 to a very undisciplined and underwhelming Marquette team. This team does not impress me. Steve Wojciechowski, as a coach, still does not impress me. I'm angry about this loss. I think we are the outright better team, but right now we're not playing like it. Not at all.
And this is just like, it kind of feels like for, I don't know, third game in a row, the Friars snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. You've got everything from Marquette missing free throws at the end of the game, but then getting the offensive rebounds. You've got putbacks that miss. You've got layups that miss. You've got players getting hurt because they slip and slide into each other. You've got two goaltending calls missed. You just have all of these little things that add up, which I guess at the end of the day, part of that is you're not playing your fundamentals. Like I think that's something we've seen from the Friars all year long. We're starting to get repetitive with this because now the team's finding its identity and we're seeing where the flaws are. This team cannot defend in the paint. Maybe that'll change by the end of the season, but they can't. You gave up 36 points in the paint. Dawson Garcia scored 20 points. He also added 6 rebounds. He could pretty much do whatever he wanted all game long. 13 offensive rebounds for Marquette. And this is a pattern. So that is your number one issue here. The Friars have always won on if they're not gonna play well, then at the very least they can muck things up on defense, be scrappy on the boards, and give themselves a chance. And that's the difference between last year's team and this year's team at this point. Last year's team, the identity was you were able to do that when things got tough. You look at that game at Villanova. The offense never got into gear, but you still won because you were able to shut them down and get rebounds. And then you've got a game like this. The Friars get rebounds. the very least, this is going to be a 2 or a 3 point game when you come down and you're going to have a chance to tie it or something like that, or you have the lead at the end. Instead, you make a lot of those errors, and here you are.
The point I want to draw blood from, Matt, on that is rebounding, paint play. This is probably one of the longest teams we've seen in recent memory for the Friars. Ed Cooley definitely has a very long and a very athletic group, and the way that we play in the paint, we'll leave Nate Watson aside because he is the one exception to this. He's been phenomenal in the paint. But the way that our role-playing forwards and wings play in the paint is embarrassing. It's straight up embarrassing. You've got Noah Horkler, Jimmy Nichols, and Greg Gant specifically, who are long, athletic guys who are settling for jump shots. I mean, the official said it. When Greg Gant went to the line at the end of the game, they said he doesn't get a lot of opportunities at the stripe. You know why? Because he's a forward that doesn't play in the paint.
Yeah,
This is not like our offense. This is not what we've been used to seeing.
No, and the Friars right now have a lot of wings who are too small to, or just not skilled enough to effectively play in the paint. Can't play defense. They can't rebound as well as they should. And like you said, they're not like getting themselves to the line. They're not drawing fouls. None of that. But at the same time, like they can't. They're too big to play defense on some of these little guys. And I mean, even that goes to Duke as well for a bit. I think you lose when you don't have Bynum. It messes things up a bit. But one of those late possessions, he's matched up one-on-one with DJ Carton. And Duke is a better defender than DJ Carton is an offensive player, but Carton's just quicker. It has to do with their size. And I think you can look at the Creighton game or a number of games in the non-conference schedule where the Friars did not look quick enough, in part because they've gone all in on size, except the size guys aren't playing with size, and they're also not quick.
Yeah, I think that about sums it up. I think the loss of Jared Bynum is starting to throb a little more now because we cannot compete with David Duke running the point and essentially three power forwards on the floor. I understand Reeves was hurt for a little bit there, but when you've got Reeves playing a small wing position and you've got kind of Duke running the point and trying to score, man, we're hurting. We're hurting without that orchestration and that composure from Bynum, who we've been tough on at times, who we've praised at other times, but his presence is missed on the court severely.
Is a steadying factor. You missed that in the first half. That's at the end of the day. That this game comes down to that. And like if you go back to the Xavier game, they had David Duke run the point for a lot of points during it, and he did a really good job. He had a good game, and it worked for the Friars. Today, first half, that wasn't there. He couldn't hit his shots. He wasn't as sharp. I don't know why. I don't know if that's some kind of injury or fatigue or whatever, but he wasn't as sharp. Alan Reed is putting up goose eggs. He's not there yet. No points, 0 for 4 from the field, no assists. That's not what you want from your point guard, and he barely saw the floor after a little bit. It was clear that he was not the guy to have out there. But then Duke's trying to do it all, and the offense gets stagnant. All of a sudden, you're down by 16 points. And that's the problem. I mean, honestly, like the Friars outplayed Marquette for probably most of the game, but the periods when Marquette outplayed the Friars were either really long or really significant, like that run they made. There's the run at the start of the game and the run they made in the back half of the first half where they got that big lead. And then you had the little moments in the second half. When you've got that kind of a lead, all you need is one shot, and you completely kill the momentum from the other side. And you saw that from Marquette. The Friars would come down, you'd make a shot, come back on defense, get a stop, hit another shot, and then Marquette hits a three, and now you're back down 3 possessions. Then you turn the ball over, and then you can't get going for another 2 minutes, and now it's 4 minutes left instead of 6 minutes left.
Yeah, I mean, time in and time out, the ball bounced Marquette's way. We gave them opportunities. We missed opportunities ourselves. I think officiating, you and I, we don't attribute losses to poor officiating. We lost because we did not play well. But officiating helps in swaying the momentum, especially when there's no fans. And that's becoming more and more prevalent as we, scratch our way through conference play here, is that, one missed call this way, one makeup call that way is sending the benches crazy and shifting momentum severely.
Yeah,
So
the Friars should have, without a doubt, should have had 3 more points. They scored 3 more points because Gant had the basket that wasn't called, and he would have had the and one. And then you had David Duke with the goaltend. So definitely 3 more points, but you lose by 10. The 3 points, yeah, like you said, we could talk about the butterfly effect and how that changes things. But when you lose by 10, 3 points is not really why.
no. At the end of the day, the 3 points will take them, but that's not why we lost. We lost because in the long run we did not play in the paint well. We did not defend well. But to one more point about officiating before we move on, kids are gonna get hurt. The play I want to talk about is when Jimmy Nichols was dragged to the ground out of bounds. You know what I'm
hmm
talking about?
hmm
If you see that and you don't call a flagrant one, that is a poor misjudgment because now I forget who that player was on Marquette, but he's going to think, okay, I just intentionally wrapped my arm around a player and pulled him to the ground, potentially hurting him, and I got away with it. I'm going to do it again.
Yep.
And it may not be this game, but it may be another game with the same official. But when you let players get away with dirty plays like that, it allows them to continue to play dirty. And I don't like dirty play. I don't like when people chirp. I thought this was kind of funny. Kobe McEwen early on, you saw he was going, tit for tat with David Duke with the 3-point shooting. Later in the game, Duke drove while Kobe McEwen was guarding him, and he started yelling for help. I was like, all right, you can't talk smack and then call for help when the guy starts driving on you. Like,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
just Marquette, though. That's just
Yeah.
how they are.
Well, one of the other officiating moments, I don't know if you caught this one, but there was an Ed Croswell. I don't remember if it was a putback or just a layup. He was shooting the
Oh,
ball
yeah,
in the
yeah,
paint,
yeah.
and Theo John was behind him and fell, and then uses his leg and wraps it around Croswell's waist and pulls him as he's going down. Croswell misses the shot, no foul call. If you do that with your arm, that's like a flagrant. But you do it with your leg, and they don't call the foul on it.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that. It's hard to prove intent when it's your leg, especially Theo John was falling down. But Theo John is definitely the type of player that would intentionally do that with his leg. So
And
I think
regardless
you're
if it's
right.
intentional or not, it's dangerous. If you want to make a comparison to hockey, in hockey all the time you'll have accidental high sticks, but it's still a penalty even though it's an accident because it's your responsibility to play responsibly and make sure you're not injuring other people. If you're going to go down, you can't be trying to trip somebody. And the time when Duke went into Watson, it's because McEwen tripped him on his way to the basket. I think that one was incidental, but still.
No, I agree. There's one more I want to talk about, and then we'll move on because I think we're spending too much time on officials. But
Yeah,
there
this is
was
the zebra show.
this was a flip flop play, I guess, a flip flop possession. Duke comes on defense and his hip brushes against DJ Carton. Whistle blows foul. Duke gets the ball in transition and goes into three Marquette players who he falls to the ground. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. It was fast
Oh, I
break.
remember this exactly.
He missed the layup and he lays on the ground. No call. There was clearly contact. It wasn't a charge. The Marquette players were standing up just fine. It was
Yeah,
I
there
don't
were
know.
there were 2 or 3 times where there was just like hip on hip contact between a Friar defender and a Marquette player where they just blew that whistle real quick, and I just most of the game they put the whistles away, and that's fine if that's how you're gonna call it, as long as you're consistent. And then you start calling that stuff, and it's like, all right, this just what are we doing here?
Right.
Why are we calling that?
What
But
you
yeah,
just said
let's
is perfect. Consistency is key. If you're going to call it on one end, call it on the other. If you're going to call it in the first half, call it in the second. If you're just going to decide late in the game when both teams desperately need to win that you're going to start blowing foul calls left and right, but not consistently, that's when it's an issue. But go ahead, we'll transition here.
yeah, we'll talk about I do want to talk about the good for the Friars, but briefly before we go into that, there was just one thing that stood out in my mind the entire time. It was something I talked about on the pregame show, and I thought my prediction ended up being pretty much spot on. That I thought Noah Horkler could be a real asset in this game because he would match up well on Dawson Garcia.
Yeah.
I watched that matchup when Horkler was in the game, and he did a very good job on Garcia, but he was not there for the final moments. He didn't play the first 10 minutes of the second half. He only played 15 minutes of the game. In 15 minutes, he had 5 points, 3 rebounds, and 3 assists, and a block. Like Horford was productive in that time. So maybe I'm missing something here. Ed Cooley does know what he's doing, but in my eyes, if you needed somebody who could play defense on Dawson Garcia and rebound, Horford was the guy, and he should have been playing over Gant for most of this one.
Yeah, I agree. I think Noah Horkler pieced together another pretty good game. I think, and this is just me trying to understand Ed Cooley's thought process here on the larger scheme. Your bigs are 6'8", 6'8", and 6'9" in Horkler. In Gant, Nichols, and Horkler, and Dawson Garcia 6'11". So I think he was just trying to find the best fit, which is why I think we saw stretches where Horkler was on him, stretches where Nichols was on him. I think it was kind of just who was defending him best at that time. But when you're 6'11", you have the easy size advantage over a lot of these guys. I thought Gant had another one of those 50-50 games. I thought he did some stuff really, really well. And then there were other times like that entry pass to Nate that he just bulleted out of bounds. I was like, oh man. And then when he got fouled and it was the N1 and he missed the free throw, I was like, that could have been a big momentum swing. But again, that's not really his fault. He doesn't go to the stripe a lot.
I think like Gant didn't have a terrible game,
No.
but this is one of those scenarios. He's the one that gave up one of those rebounds on Dawson Garcia late. And yeah, Garcia's bigger than you. He's going to be a hard player to play against. He's got 3 inches on you, but Gant barely got off the ground. He barely jumped for the ball. And that's it still seems like at points the game is too fast for him. He's reacting instead of acting. He's not anticipating where the ball is going to be and getting there. And because of that, that athleticism doesn't do anything. Gant is way more athletic than a guy like Noah Horkler, but Horkler, I think, has been a more consistent shooter, and he's been a way more consistent rebounder, which, I mean, in a game like this, that's what you needed. I think Gant is probably the better player for most Big East games, but in this particular matchup, there's only a few teams in the Big East where Horkler's the guy I think you want to be playing at the 3 or the 4. This was one of the few, and I'm surprised we didn't see more. I thought, I wanted to talk about the positives here too. We'll segue this into Jimmy Nichols. I thought Jimmy Nichols had a pretty good game, especially on offense, but defensively, he had some real issues with Garcia, and he only had 1 rebound. Not often that you see a guy his size playing the 4 get 1 rebound.
Yeah. I think Jimmy probably pieced together one of his better games in the Friar uniform. 11 points, a new career high for him. He was great from beyond the arc, and that's actually very, very good to know for us going forward, because that's another person that can stroke it from deep. Rebounding, it's a little disappointing because he's really long, and he really should be getting in there and getting into the mix a little bit. But I think that goes back again to where he's playing. He's not necessarily playing in the paint. Like we said, he's not a true power forward. He's not a true small forward. He's somewhere in the middle. So we don't really play him in a position where he can get rebounds. But again, when you're that long, you should be crashing, and I mean like crashing hard for boards, because Nate can't do it all by himself, and we saw that today. And when Nate's hurt, you need other guys to step up and crash the boards.
Yeah, and speaking of crashing the boards, your leaders for rebounds, you had Big Ed Croswell coming off the bench. I think he had 6 rebounds in 11 minutes. I think this is, outside of that Fairfield game, this is probably Ed Croswell's best game as a Friar, even though he didn't do it on the scoring end. He was probably the team's most efficient rebounder. And then AJ Reeves, he had 6 rebounds, and I think apart from the turnovers, Reeves has found it. This is the Reeves we thought we were going to get at the beginning of the year. Too many turnovers, but the rest of it, the shooting, the rebounding, it's there. And he has not been a liability on defense as much as he has been at previous points in his career.
I said it during the game. I thought AJ's on-ball defense improved a ton. I think he moves his feet better, and he has a better awareness of reading the player that he's defending. So I think, that's a tip of the hat to him. He probably worked on that in the offseason. Rebounding, I always thought AJ was a pretty decent rebounder. I'm not surprised by this. I'm happy it came on today, especially when our power forwards don't want to rebound. So it's nice to see that our wing is doing it. And Scoring, it's been needed. He's the third leg to Duke, Watson, Reeves. He's finally, picking it up. His scoring average has increased since conference play started. We just need to start seeing more wins because 3 straight hurts.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing right there is that there's only so many moral victories. At some point, the number of losses gets to be too high. I know you're worried. I'm not there yet, just because, like I said at the beginning of this, I think this was a scheduled loss. You're going on the road. Like, if you have Jared Bynum, number one, I don't think you see the scoring drought that you saw in the first half. Number two, I think your defense looks a lot better. Probably not in the paint, but your defense against Marquette's guards ends up looking a lot better. And third, AJ Reeves had 5 turnovers, and a lot of those were him trying to dribble the ball and do something. He's not in that position if he's playing the 3 instead of the 2 like he was tonight. Bynum's there, it has ripple effects down the lineup, and Reeves is put in a position where he probably just has the shooting numbers he had, and it's 1 or 2 turnovers instead of 5. Reeves also had that brilliant play with the layup where he came down and got hurt on it. They didn't really show a replay. It looked like he got fouled to me on the initial the initial look at it. He had 12 points. He easily could have had 14 if that falls. That's another one of those plays where it just there were, I think, 3 or 4 layups or putbacks that just kind of hung on the rim and wouldn't fall, which kind of reminds me of when Providence played at Butler. Get some of those open looks and then the shots just don't fall for you, which this team has been cursed at points in the school's history.
Just cut here. Yeah, Matt, I just want to backtrack real quick to the point you made about when Reeves came down after he got hurt. That's just not to beat the dead horse here, but another example of where a missed call led to a player getting hurt, and that's basically my big 2 cents on why I desperately want the Big East to investigate the poor officiating of not just this game but many games because players are going to get hurt. But again, I agree with everything you just said. It's good to have Reeves back on track, but we kind of big picture here. We need to get back in the win column.
Yeah, I'm looking at Reeves's box scores right now. He's had double figures in 4 of his last 5 games. He's made at least 2 3-pointers in each of his last 5 games. The only one where he wasn't in double figures was 9 points last time at Xavier. So you're still right on the edge there. This is starting with that 22-point game at home against DePaul. So it looks like Duke Reeves Watson is working. It's just like the losses started coming when Bynum got hurt. And like I feel like you can kind of look at past Friars teams where if you go back to I think it was the 2018 team at one point Kyron Cartwright was hurt that season. That might have been the year before. One of those years Kyron Cartwright gets hurt and then a team that started to play well, the wheels fall off a little bit. So I think if the players keep playing like this, Reeves is going to be averaging double figures by the end of the year, where you're going to have 3 players averaging double figures. Bynum is probably going to, if not be in double figures, he'll probably get there. I think he'll find his scoring touch at some point. I am not worried yet because there's a lot of opportunities for wins for the rest of the season. There's going to be opportunities to get win streaks, to win in bunches. And assuming everybody comes back, the team should be getting healthier and should be building. The Friars don't play their best basketball till the end of the season. And as frustrating as that is now, like you get bad luck in some of these games, you're going to get good luck at some other points. So what goes around comes around, I think, for the Friars. Maybe I'm too optimistic, but
I was gonna say you play good cop. I'm gonna play bad cop here. Just a point you made. I want to build off that the Kyron Cartwright thing you made. This team is severely dysfunctional without a 35-minute per game. I'm the table setter, I'm the point guard kind of guy. We saw it when we lost Kyron Cartwright 2017, 2018. We saw he had that little ankle tweak in the non-conference, and it kind of dabbled over into early conference play. And we saw a flip-flop between Mekhi Ashton Langford and Drew Edwards at the point guard, and the team kind of fell apart. Once Cartwright came back, we saw a steady, consistent uplift of the team. The following year, we lost Kyron Cartwright, and we juggled the 3-headed monster of Duke, Mekhi Ashton Langford and Malik White at the point guard, that team was a burning dumpster fire. We had absolutely no control. And here we are again. I mean, last year you saw it. We juggled Lawan Pipkins and Malik White, and until Pipkins came on, you know, we had trouble there too. So this team, it's no surprise that without our starting point guard, we are struggling. And I think that's a direct correlation that you can make. I think anyone who has consistently followed Friar basketball year in and year out understands that without Jared Bynum on the floor, we're going to struggle. What is hard to swallow is that even without him, we're still competing and we're still playing in games because while he is a very important piece, he is not the piece that runs the team. He is not the scoring punch. He is supposed to be running the offense and setting the table for the scoring punch, which is Duke, which is Watson, which is Reeves. And that's why I think we're seeing at times the offense fall apart. The defense is less composed because I think, Duke's preoccupied. Who's our best defender? There's a lot of pieces here, but I'll transition into big picture. You're good cop. You're gonna go with the traditional narrative that Providence plays better late. I'm gonna go bad cop here because I saw this happen last year in the Big East Gauntlet when we dropped three straight. I think it was at Creighton, at Seton Hall, at home against Villanova.
Mm-hmm.
Over that gauntlet stretch, we went 1-4 with our only win at home against St. John's. We lost at home against Butler, and then the other three I just mentioned. This gauntlet here is teeing up to be a very similar style because next you have Georgetown at home, which on paper is supposed to be a favorable game for the Friars, but Georgetown's down, and you just never know with them. They have some good players, and then after that, you really go into the teeth of it. You go at Creighton and you go at Villanova. So there is the potential over this Big East gauntlet to go 1-5, and it hurts to say that, but if we do go 1-5 over this gauntlet, then I think the whole righting of the ship and going on a late season run becomes one of those like do or die. If we don't win this next game, we're kind of out situation. Yeah. And I don't want to think like that, but my brain can't help but go there with the new Big East, the extra game, and my head is spinning.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I'm gonna come. Yeah, we're at a distance here, but pretend I'm putting my arm around you. I'm gonna calm you down right now, Joe. I'm looking at the schedule. Let's say I think the Friars beat Georgetown. Hopefully Bynum is back. But he traveled with the team. So if he's traveling with the team, they must have thought he had a chance of playing in this one. I think he'll play at least a little bit against Georgetown. Georgetown is very bad this year. They're outside of the top 100 on KenPom. If you lose at home to them, I'm worried. But for now, we're chalking that up as a win. Then you lose at Creighton. You lose at Villanova. You go 1-4 or 1-5 in the gauntlet. After that, though, you're gonna get Marquette at home. The Friars just proved that they could go to Marquette and play with them, given all of the crazy circumstances about that game. That can probably be a win. You travel to Georgetown. They're a worse team. That should be a win. You get Seton Hall at home. Friars already beat Seton Hall on the road. You know you can beat them. You're getting them at home. That could be a win. Now that's 3 in a row that you put together. You get St. John's at home. They're scrappy, but they're a worse team than you. That should be a win. Now you've got 4 wins in a row going to figure things out. And then after that, your last 5 games, you've got DePaul and St. John's on the road. Those are trap games, but you're a better team. You should be able to win. On your other games, it's 3 ranked games. What would be ranked as of right now? You got UConn twice, home and road, and you got the Villanova home game. And that's where you prove yourself. You got an opportunity to get hot, get going, figure yourself out late, get healthy, and then you're going to get a whole bunch of ranked games. 2 of them are going to be at home. And if you can split with UConn and take that Villanova game with everything we just talked about happening, Friars can go 1-5 in this gauntlet. You're going to end the season hot, and that right there is what the committee is going to look at. They're going to say, oh, wow, all right, this team, they didn't play well early in the season when they were hurt, and then they got healthy and started playing really good basketball against good teams. All right, they're a tournament team. That's what it's going to look like. That's how I feel. And like you pointed out last season, We didn't know who our point guard was when we went through that stretch last season. Lawan Pipkins was not playing the way he was. If Jared Bynum finds it, I mean, look at the point guards the Friars have had in the past. You had Pipkins last year, Cartwright before him, Dunn before him, and Bryce Cotton. Ed Cooley knows how to get point guards going. Jared Bynum's going to find it. He's going to come back and be healthy. If that happens, the Friars can have 4 guys who can score in double digits, who can average double digits. Plus, clearly there's guys on the bench who can contribute. Post defense is still an issue, and I don't know if that's going to change. But it's a Friar, like what I said preseason, this is a Friars team. Their defense got worse, but their offense got a lot better. The Friars can put up 75 points or 78 points a night against some of these opponents, and even if your post defense is bad, that's going to be good enough.
Yeah.
You don't sound like I convinced you.
No, I'm sorry because I listened and you did just make a great argument, and it should be convincing. I feel like I've been through this ringer year in and year out, and it's starting to wear me down a little bit mentally when it comes to planning ahead and predicting these kind of games. I think what has me so agitated right now is I hate starting behind the 8 ball with teams that are at your level or better than you. And what I mean by that is I always say you want to sweep in the biggies and you don't want to get swept, right? Right now, Creighton, Xavier, and Marquette are in a position where if we don't clean up our act in the paint, they will sweep us. And we saw it 2 seasons ago, David Duke and AJ Reeves' freshman year, 2018, 2019, where 4 teams swept us in conference play, and we were an NIT team, and that wasn't fun. That's not fun basketball. The team was not motivated. Guys transferred out. Obviously, we had a great bounce back year, but the following year, we did not get swept. We swept a bunch of teams, and we split with all the teams you're supposed to. So the reason I fear this is because right now we're behind the 8 ball with a bunch of teams. We were in this position last year, so obviously it's the Ed Cooley brand. It's very on brand for this team to be behind the 8 ball and to come back and to win games you're not supposed to. And at the end of February, say, hey, Joe Lunardi, screw your bracket. We're making it. That's what this team does. It's just I feel like the problems that we've seen on the court this year are a little more anti-Providence than we've seen in the past. Post play specifically, again, except for Nate Watson, is scaring me a little bit defensively because right now I don't think Marquette's the better post team than us. I think Garcia's a great player, but he's also a stretch. So it's not like Theo John's killing you in the post. It's all their other pieces killed us in the post as well. This might just be me overreacting to one game, though. I don't know.
Well, I mean, we'll see what happens. Creighton, first of all, with the way Creighton has played this season, there is no shame in getting swept by them. I was like, you want to sweep if you can, or at least split with most of these teams. The reality is, the Friars are last year was the first time in school history that the Friars didn't get swept by somebody in conference play.
That is true.
It happens. The Friars make the tournament. So, I mean, you can, like, the Friars are also in a really good position with a team like Seton Hall right now because they already got the road win against them. Now, like, you should get that sweep. If the Friars get that sweep and you split with everybody else, then you're 11-9 in conference play, and you might not be a tournament team with that resume, but you never know. You're definitely above 500. And you look at the schedule's weird right now. To play the game at the time you did at Xavier and then turn around and play on such short notice but such a vast time change at Marquette, that's not going to happen for the rest of the season. From here on out, it's basically Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday, Wednesday. You're playing a night game and then an afternoon game, just like that. 7 p.m. game or a noon game or something like that. It gets a lot more normal. And when that happens, you're going to have a shot. Let's face it, the Friars are going to go to Villanova. That's going to be a tough game. Who knows what Villanova is going to look like? They've had their COVID issues. Friars are going to play at Creighton. It was a 2-point game at Alumni Hall. Friars are going to have a shot there. And if they don't, that doesn't hurt because Creighton has been destroying everybody that they play. So, I mean, the Friars had 4 guys in double figures tonight and played a very solid game given the circumstances. You add Jared Bynum back into the mix and you tune things as the season goes along, and I don't know if this is going to be a team that finishes third place in the Big East, but they should still be top 5 in my opinion.
What's so scary about the Big East is you could so easily finish third, or you could so easily finish seventh, given the log jam that is basically inevitable. I mean, you always find, and I'll use previous Big East because this is without UConn. You always found that group of 3 or 4 10-8 teams. I mean, if there was anything certain about the Big East, it was 2 at the top, 2 at the bottom, and 10-8. That was
Yeah.
always the case. We're gonna see it shift a little bit this year with another team being added, but
You got 2 more
I,
games for everybody.
I think when and if we turn it back on and play the basketball we're capable of, we can very easily push for that third spot in the conference. If we don't, I fear us falling into that 6 or 7 spot and kind of trembling on Selection Sunday. But you never know. There's a lot of things that could happen here. I think first and foremost, you need to get Jared Bynum back on the floor. I think that's one of, if not the most daunting issue for us right now.
Yep. Get Bynum back. Get the team healthy. You want to make sure Nate and AJ and David aren't hobbled from this. And it's the plus side of playing on Tuesday. You get that extra day. Friars are going to play on Saturday against Georgetown. Obviously, we're going to have a pregame show for you for that. So we're not going to touch on that game too much. But the schedule is favorable. And also, road games are not as daunting this year as they've been in the past. So that's a detriment because you already beat Seton Hall on the road. And coming home, it's not as much of a sure thing as a win as it has been in the past. But it also means that for a team like Creighton or Villanova, I think you have a better shot of winning on the road. And also, when you play a team at St. John's, second to last game of the year, you don't have to worry about going and facing some crazy crowd. It lessens the idea of it being a trap game because you're not going to have that crowd that can do things. If you're the better team, you can just go out there and play like it as long as you bring your own energy. And we should probably start to wrap up. Speaking of bring your own energy, I have a stat for you, Joe. I think you'll like this one. David Duke has hit his first 3-point attempt in 5 straight games.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, and he's hit his first 3-point attempt in 6 of the 7 Big East games.
That's really good.
Yeah. So he's bringing the energy early.
I hope that, let's, for argument's sake, say that this might be David Duke's last year. I really hope we don't waste it on him. I really hope we don't, because the combination that we have between Duke, Reeves, and Watson is something special. I think this is a scoring trio that we have not had the benefit of seeing in a very long time at Providence. This takes me back to the Dunn Bentel days, but let's hope that we can do something with this. Let's make some national noise with these guys. I think you're right, Matt. There's a lot of opportunity. The road ahead is very wide and very open in the Big East. I'm not a fan of Wojo. I'm not a fan of Marquette. So losing to them and seeing Wojo's antics on the sideline and thinking like that guy got the win over us just really gets under my skin.
Yeah, no, you never like losing to him. That is always tough. So yeah, I mean, nobody likes Marquette. I'm not even convinced that the people that go there like it. Who goes to Milwaukee voluntarily? Probably just we just lost our Wisconsin market with that. But
I don't think many Marquette fans are listening to us.
Probably not. If so, I'd apologize. No, I'm not even gonna apologize. You know who you are. It's Marquette. But yeah, this is just the Friars are doing it again. Same old Friars. Play bad in non-conference, show signs early in conference play, but you can't put it together because somebody gets hurt or you have weird games. I mean, you compare it to last season. You still got your early road buzzer beater. It was Marquette last year. It was Seton Hall this year. And you've still got a gauntlet where you lose a bunch of games, even though David Duke plays really well and you don't have the point guard figured out for those games. And then the schedule gets easier after it. Like, it's not history is repeating itself. It's Groundhog Day.
Oh God. It's so indicative of the year we just had too, because for like 5 months you woke up and did the same thing every day.
Yeah, here we are on it's about March 280th, and we're only 2 months away from March Madness.
Oh man.
Yeah.
All right,
So
let's close
to
it
anybody
off.
to anybody who's listening to this, I think you can clearly hear we're starting to go a little bit stir crazy. I think this is probably a good time to wrap up. Any last thoughts?
Yeah. I know this is like a 1 in 10,000 chance, but I would love to see the throwback jerseys come out. I think that would. I, listen, man. This is the perfect opportunity. You know, you come home, you play a game against Georgetown. I'm not even going to say what I think is going to happen. You play a game against Georgetown. I would love it if we just popped on those black and white jerseys, the throwbacks, and just rolled through the rest of conference play, starting with a win at Creighton. That would be awesome. That would make my year. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't control their Nike budget, so.
Yeah, this is if they have them stashed somewhere, that Creighton game, that's a time to roll them out. I'll go through the stats here real quick because we didn't go through everybody. We didn't even mention Nate Watson led the team. Even though he missed 12 minutes, he led the team with 18 points, 7 of 8 shooting, 4 for 4 from the free throw line, only 3 rebounds, so not as strong of a performance on the glass, but as a scorer, Nate Watson having a remarkably efficient game where his deep 2 was hitting. David Duke, 17 points and 9 assists. Reeves, I believe that's a career high for assists for him as well. Reeves, 12 points, Nichols, 11. Both of those hit 3 3-pointers, and you have the 6 rebounds for Reeves. On the other side, Dawson Garcia leads Marquette with 20 points. They had 5 scorers in double figures. Garcia with 20, McEwen with 17, Carton with 13, Kane with 12, and Lewis with 11. McEwen was also their leading rebounder with 8 and their leader for assists with 5. So he had a very strong performance. Friars dropped this one 79-69, fall to 7-6 on the season. This is a 3-game losing streak now. And the Friars are now below 500 in conference play. But they're going to have a chance this Saturday at noon to get back up to that watermark, playing against Georgetown at home. And we're going to have a pregame show for you at some point between now and then, so stay tuned for that. Make sure you're following us on Twitter at the Flex Hoops, and follow us wherever you're listening to this to make sure you can stay up to date with our content. For Joe Howie, I am Matt St. Jean, and thank you for listening.
Feed Nate Watson. Go Friars.